As you guys know, I have been talking about writing a story. I've been talking about writing the lore for this game. There are now, there's a lot of lore for this game. Because what I have found myself doing is trying to put together a story. And as I'm putting together this story, I keep asking questions that I should have asked myself in Legends of Callasia. When I talk about the idea of Sonder and I talk about the idea of every character has its own story, the main character of our story has always been, in my mind, Olivia. For those of you who don't remember who Olivia is, let's see, I've got her, that lady right there. That's Olivia. And I've always thought she was just a fascinating looking character. I thought I feel there's an interesting story in her. And I've been trying to write her story. And as I have gone through and tried to write that story, I keep running into these questions about, well, who does she interact with? Where does she go? When she talks, what does she talk about? What history does she have? How does that history interact with the history of the place where she was born or the place where the people she was fighting were born? When I start looking at other characters, and there's so many characters in this game. When I start looking at, here's Tristan. What's his story? Why does she interact with Tristan? Why is Tristan involved in this story? When I bring up Princess Silvera, what is her part of the story? How does she fit into all of this? And as I start asking these questions, this larger and larger lore has developed for the story. And I keep getting pulled away from the basic question of, well, where do we go and what we do and what missions do we play, which is what the staff really needs because they want to go make the missions. I keep getting pulled away from that to say, well, what is the nation of Portella? What is their economy like? Who is their leader? What kind of money do they use? What language do they speak? Blah, 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 blah. There's all of these things. But I ran into this one really big question, which is, as you play the game, and here, let's load up a level real quick. I'll load up a skirmish level. If I load up a skirmish level, let's say I'm going to play Bitterleaf Point here. You will see that the game right now is arranged around the concept that you have one hero that you are playing. In this case, it's Olivia, but I might have chosen a different hero from my regiment. You can see there's the hero down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So I've got this hero who's the leading character of this part of this story. Now I'm playing a skirmish mode, which is not really a part of the story. This is, but for the purposes, let's pretend this was part of the story. The question is, I can't have a whole campaign mode where you only play Olivia. I need to introduce these other characters like Tristan and Hollythorn. So what is Hollythorn's story? What is Tristan's story? And we had this conversation in the studio where I was kind of troubled, and I was like, how do I resolve this problem of I need you to continually be changing characters, but I want to be telling Olivia's story. That's troublesome. And I've been looking for a good solution to that. And I think I found one. And the solution that I'm going with in writing the story and putting the campaign together now is that there is a larger story. There is not necessarily Olivia's story, but a story in which Olivia plays a prominent role that is being told about the colonization of Kothia and about a thing I'm not going to tell you about. I don't want to ruin the story for you. But there is a story being told. And we are going to see this story from a number of different potential viewpoints. One of those viewpoints, obviously, is that of Olivia, because we're going to start out. The story is introduced through Olivia beginning to understand the story. But as the story continues to unfold, we will actually be switching from viewpoint to viewpoint and seeing this story from differing viewpoints. In some cases, the viewpoint of what might be considered an enemy, somebody who we might be considering somebody, but we might find out that they're not really the enemy that we thought they were, that they're actually something different. And so that storytelling framework is something I've not worked with before. Historically, when I have made games, my storytelling framework has been very linear. For those of you who have not heard me talk about it 1,000 times in the past, I'll say it again. I was actually one of the developers on the original Far Cry. And one of the main jobs that I had when I was a developer for the original Far Cry was I wrote the story for it. Now, obviously, there were other people involved in that, and it went through approval processes from Ubisoft, and there were designers at Crytek that were involved in it too. But at heart, the responsibility of ensuring that a story existed and that it got told through the framework of all of those levels, that was my responsibility, and I went through that. And it was a linear process. Main character is Jack Carver. You're going to go through this island. Starts out, hey, some bastard blew up my boat. And, okay, let's find out who blew up my boat and let's get off this island. And that was a very straightforward story to tell because there was a very straightforward question at the beginning of the game. Who blew up my boat? And now there's another good question. Why are these assholes shooting at me and how do I get the fuck off this island? There was a very straightforward story. And it was designed to be that way because we didn't feel that we needed anything that complex because mostly just wanted to, shoot people. The story that's coming from Last Regiment is turning into a substantially more complicated story. It's a substantially, I don't want to say deeper, but it is a substantially more complex story to tell. And to be honest, it's just, it's taking more time to put together than I thought it would. I'm going to put this Boomzap logo right on my microphone because that's cool. Sorry, I got distracted. So that's what I'm doing with story. And that's this concept of Sonder. It's been something that's really been in my head lately. This idea of everyone having their own story.